this piece, I want to talk about income protection and how to protect your salary or your profits. Now, I said on my first point here, it's possibly a more important policy than life insurance. Look, why do I say that? Look, statistically, you are far more likely to have an accident or an illness or have a medical condition during your working life than to die. Simple. I think we would all acknowledge that, wouldn't we? So if that's the case, and let's say you are extremely limited on funds, and we could all say, well, yeah, we all are, but let's say you could only buy one policy, a life policy or an income protection policy, then depending on your circumstances, I would certainly be leaning to the income protection policy for that simple reason. The risk of something going wrong is more likely that you're going to have an accident or an illness, and that might have an impact on your ability to earn income. So who be interested in this piece? Who would this policy benefit? And who should be listening to this piece? Well, there's two camps. The first one are those that are employed. Now, if you've not already got a pen and paper, write this down, because afterwards I really want you to go and take some action. Grab your employment contract. If you don't know where it is, speak to your employer, get a copy of it, find the paragraph that talks about your sick pay scheme. Because for most smaller employers in the UK, your sick pay scheme is fairly modest. The amount of full pay I'm talking about that your employer is going to pay you could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Actually, it might be zero. And the only pay you might get is statutory sick pay. And you should know the difference. That is not the pay that your employer is going to pay you. Excuse me. So statutory sick pay, government benefit, it's £116.75 a week. And if that's the only sick pay that you're going to get, then you should be asking your question right now. If I was to be ill, if I couldn't work, so my employer now has no obligation whatsoever to pay me my full pay, all I can claim is SSP, and it's £116.75 a week. Can I pay the mortgage? Can I keep the roof over my head? Can I pay the bills? If the answer is yes, happy days, switch off, move on. But if you can't, keep listening to this, because this is where these types of policies come into play. So that's the employed people. Now, what about self-employed people? There's certainly a myth circulating that self-employed people, sole traders, partners, think that they surely can't get this type of income protection policy. But that's I want to dispel that completely. Self-employed people absolutely can cover their profits. So if their profits are £3,000 a month, they can get income protection to cover, let's say, 2/3 of that. So let's say £2,000 a month. So if something happens and there's an accident or an illness, and here's the thing, the ability to claim is not based on a list of conditions. So you might be thinking critical illness policies, which do work on this basis, that if you have an illness, you have to dust off your critical illness policy and look at a list of conditions on there. And you've got to cross your fingers and hope that the illness you've got is actually on the list. Because if it isn't on the list, you can't claim. If it is on the list, well, you move forward and you put your claim in. With income protection, it is so simple. There is no list of conditions. Here's how you claim. You'll go to your GP. If your GP says you are unfit to work and signs you off, that's your trigger to claim. Simple as. There is no list of conditions. So it doesn't matter whether you were at work or at home, whether it was an accident, whether it was an illness. It's irrelevant. It's your GP signing you off. That's your trigger to claim. And then here's the next thing. You might be saying, well, I've got some savings. I can fall back on those. Now, I did a little bit of research before coming on. Here's a shocking statistic. 34% of UK adults have got £1,000 or less in savings. It really did shock me when I saw that stat. So 1 in 3 of the people I'm probably talking to have less than £1,000 of saving. How long is that going to last you? It's not going to cover a month. Now, you might say, well, okay, I'm above average. I've got more than that. So what you should be doing is say, okay, well, I've got enough savings to last me, let's say 3 months. So here's what you do. You get an income protection policy that doesn't start, it doesn't kick in until month 4. Now, the insurers will love that because it's a lower risk to them. So for the short-term illnesses, you're not going to claim. For those illnesses that are less than 3 months and you're back at work, then you've got your savings. But anything that's a medium term or a long-term illness or accident, then that's what that policy is designed to cover that risk. And of course, it's going to be cheaper because the insurer is not going to pay out for, like I say, for those short-term illnesses. So they're happy because they're more likely to receive a claim. You're happy because you've got lower premiums, and of course, you have got peace of mind by having that risk covered. Now, if you want some final sort of convincing, here's a scenario I want to give you. I've got a short video of Mike, and I just want you really just to take 90 seconds out and just watch and listen to Mike's story and see what you think.
I've been lucky all through the years not to sustain any sort of bad injuries, but this was the big one. Me and my 13-year-old lads went up to a bike park up in Manchester. I went off down one of the trails that I was familiar with. There's a few jumps on that, hit one of the jumps, went over the handlebars and landed flat on my back, which has left me paralysed basically from the belly button down. I really just remember the concern about how life would be. At the time, we were in our overdraft, sort of scrimping and saving, and I think if we hadn't had the policies in place, then we'd probably still be there now. If you're umming and ahhing about whether to take your policy out, you've got to put it up there with your utilities, like your water, your electricity, all that. If I can't return to work, the policy will pay out till retirement. It's a bit of a weight off the mind. I think it's really important now, in hindsight. It's like wearing a crash helmet. You don't use your crash helmet until you've fallen. That's when you need it.
So you've seen and heard Mike's situation. The worst did happen to him and his family. But fortunately, despite him being on modest income, he'd taken out these policies and that covered him. So yes, he's got those horrendous and horrific injuries from that bike accident, but financially, his family are covered. And that's what it was designed to do. That's what it did. It kicked in. And at least financially, the roof's going to be kept over Mike and his family's head. If you want to just chat about your circumstances, just understand these types of policies a little bit more, get a bit more information, get some quotations based on different circumstances. When I talked about the savings a little bit earlier, we can look at these policies kicking in. You may be utterly shocked at how cheap they are, particularly when you start deferring when you're going to claim if you have a little bit of savings. It could be the best thing that you've done. But I'll have a chat with Victoria. She's our insurance advisor. There'll be a link at the end of this piece, just under the video. Cut and paste it or click on the link and just have an obligation chat with Victoria, our insurance advisor, and she will certainly put you in an informed position so you can decide whether it is right for you.